So now we're in chapter 4, Homeostasis. So what is the concept of homeostasis? So homeostasis, it is when your body wants to keep it internally steady. So it is controlled by a negative feedback mechanism. The importance of homeostasis in mammals. Metabolic reactions are controlled by enzymes and they work best in narrow range of temperature and pH only. So temperature, usually we need a 37.5, pH must be neutral, except in the stomach or in the pancreas they need alkaline. So it is important to keep the internal environment as steady as possible. So this is what's called the negative feedback mechanism. So you have something rising or lowering, so your body will try to pull it back to the normal state. So you have the normal value rising up above the normal value, and then a corrective mechanism will try to pull it back to the normal value, pull it down back. So it is what's called a negative feedback. So saying goes, if a value falls below normal, a corrective mechanism will try to raise it up again so it becomes normal again. So parts of the body involved: skin, it regulates your body temperature; kidneys regulates water and mineral salts; liver and pancreas would regulate the blood glucose level. Thermoregulation, regulation of body temperature. So you have animals which are poikilotherms or cold-blooded animals. The body temperature vary with that of the environment. For example, reptiles, fish, amphibians. Then you have the homeotherms or warm-blooded animals. These animals keep body temperature constant even in winter by increasing the metabolic rate. For example, birds or mammals. Heat gains and losses. So some animals, they would try to lose the heat. Some animals would try to gain the heat because for where they live. So if you can see there, you have the snow rabbit. It is in the cool area, so it needs to gain heat. But what about the jackrabbit on the right? It needs to lose the heat. So all of these are to make sure that the internal body temperature will be constant. Internal core temperature is stable only when the metabolic heat produced and heat gained from the environment balance heat loss to the environment. So as you can see, changing body heat will be heat produced plus gained, so this will be the positives, minus heat that is lost. So if there is too much heat lost, you'll be cold. If there is too much heat produced and gained, you'll be hot inside. How core temperature can change? First of all, it's thermal radiation. So by just existing, you would emit the heat into space. So the sun radiates heat from the middle of the solar system without any medium at all, so directly from it to us. Conduction, heat is transferred by direct contact, so meaning that if you touch something that's hot, the heat will be transferred to you. Convection, heat is transferred by the movement of air or water. So this is how it happens in the water. So you have aquatic animals losing heat by convection. Then evaporation, heat is lost when liquid is converted to a gas. So by keeping itself moist all the time, it will continuously lose the heat, because when liquid wants to turn to a gas, it will absorb heat. So where will it absorb the heat? So sweat will absorb the heat from the body itself. So by changing it to gas, it will actually suck away the heat from the actual body, and it will cool down the body. Ectotherms, endotherms, and heterotherms. Endotherms, fishes, amphibians, and reptiles. The body temperature of these animals change with the environment, and they regulate the temperature by altering position, not the environment. Endotherms, most birds and mammals. Body temperature is maintained by metabolic heat. Heterotherms can maintain or decrease some the core temperature by themselves. So some birds and mammals actually do this. Temperature regulation in mammals. You have the hypothalamus has the body temperature thermostat. Temperature regulation in mammals. You have the hypothalamus is the body thermostat. So it will detect the temperature and signal the hypothalamus, which prompts adjustment and maintain core temperature. So to maintain core temperature, you have many mechanisms to help you cool down or heat up your body, because the environment is always changing. So Heat stress means that you have too much heat that is more than your body can handle. So what if we have heat stress? So usually for mammals, they would pant, they increase the blood flow to skin, sweating, and reducing the activity level, so that we will not create even more heat. Fever will be the increase in the body temperature regulated by hypothalamus, usually a response to infection. Failure to control body heat results in a rising core temperature, which can be fatal. Responses to cold stress. If you look at the mammal, a mammal with some hair or fur, they will fluff out their fur to trap the air. So other than that, some of the animals, they shiver to increase muscle activity and increase the heat production. Failure to protect against cold will cause hypothermia. Hypothermia is lower temperature in the body, which alters brain function and can be fatal. So if your body is in 36 degrees, the cold will be setting in. 34, you will start to forget, you have amnesia. 33, you have cardiac arrhythmia, in that your heart is not pumping during according to the actual beats. And then you have 32, muscle contractions. 31, pre-coma stage. And 30, you are in a coma. Okay. At 37, your skin will become pale. At 26, your body will become limp because you have loss of muscle tone. 35, your heartbeat will be slow. 23, your breathing cannot be listened anymore. And at 22, death. So if you are drowning in water, you should perform these two positions, help and huddle. Your body loses heat 25 times faster in the water than in the air. When someone falls overboard, his or her core temperature will begin to drop within 10 to 15 minutes. So you need help, which is heat escape lessening position. So when you do that, you will kind of like bunch out yourself. You will reduce the surface area to lose the heat. And huddle, you see somebody else, see other survivors, and then you try to move towards them and hug them, and make sure that you're all close to each other to preserve the body heat. Increasing metabolic heat production. Usually this happens during cold. So to increase the temperature within the body will shiver. So with prolonged cold exposure, hypothalamus will command skeletal muscle to increase heat production by contracting 10 to 20 times per second. Non shivering heat production means that this one is long term. So in the long term, the fat in your body will actually be sacrificed to create even more heat. So the cells in your brown adipose tissue will release energy as heat by sacrificing the fat drop or the adipose tissue. Okay, so homeostasis and temperature control. Your normal body temperature will be 37 Celsius. If the body temperature rises above normal, the nervous system will signal the dermal blood vessels to dilate and sweat glands to secrete. Body heat will be lost to surroundings and it will cause it to drop towards normal. If your body temperature drops below normal, the nervous system will signal the dermal blood vessels to constrict and sweat glands to remain inactive. So body heat is conserved. But if body temperature continues to drop, nervous system signals muscles to contract involuntarily to generate body heat so that the body temperature will rise towards normal. Heat. Your skin will vasodilate. Vasodilation means that your arterioles will dilate so that the more blood will enter the skin capillaries and heat is lost. Cold. In the cold, arterioles will get smaller to reduce blood going to skin, keeping the core warm. Sweating. Usually you sweat only when you are feeling hot. So the sudorific glands secrete sweat, which removes the heat when water changes state. Shivering. It involves rapid contraction and relaxing of skeletal muscles. So due to this, you will create a lot of heat. So it is produced by respiration. Polyrelaxation means that the hairs will flatten. Polyreaction, the hairs on the skin will stand up. So hot means that you need to lose a lot of heat. So by stretching out, you can have a larger surface area to lose the heat from. So usually during cold, people will curl up behind, underneath the blankets, curl up underneath the duvet. Okay, in general, they will curl up so that it will be a smaller surface area so that you can preserve your heat. The liver. So the liver is second largest organ. It is the largest gland, 1 to 2.3 kg, capable of regeneration. So the location will be at the right hypochondriac region. Hypo means lower, chondria means the heart, so it is in the lower right of the heart. Epigastric region means that it is a little bit outside of the gastric or the stomach, and a little into the left of the hypochondriac region means that it will be a little bit to the left of the area under the heart. So here's the liver's position in the human body. As you can see, the liver is just below the chest and on top of the stomach. The liver has two main lobes, right and left. Right is larger, left is smaller. And within the lobe, there's a lot of lobules, which is a tiny functional unit. It consists of hepatocytes and sinusoids. First function of liver will be carbohydrate metabolism. So carbohydrate will maintain blood glucose by storing or releasing glucose as needed. Glycogenesis means that you are creating glucose. Okay, glycogenesis means that you are creating glycogen by converting glucose, which is excess, into glycogen by insulin stored into the liver. Glycogenolysis, you are breaking down glycogen. This converting sugar that is in glycogen into glucose by glucagon, so it is released into the blood. Other than that, if you're lacking in sugar, other nutrients can be converted into sugar, which is called gluconeogenesis. Amino acid, lactate, or glycerol from protein, from the lactic acid, or from fats will be turned into sugar or glucose. Lipid metabolism. Liver will break down triglycerides to produce energy. Other than that, these will be used to synthesize cholesterol for use by body or to be secreted into the bile for removal from the body. It is also for the synthesis of lipoproteins, which is transport for fats. So it converts excess carbohydrate and protein into fatty acids and glycerins, which is then stored in the adipose tissue. So meaning that if you eat too much, all of this extra sugar will turn into fat. Function of the liver. Number 3, protein metabolism. The amination and transamination of amino acid means that you are removing the amine group or transferring the amine group of the amino acid to another amino acid. Another is the synthesis of urea from ammonia. So ammonia is very toxic to your body. It needs to be turned into urea so that it will be a little bit harmless. Synthesis of non-essential amino acid, and also synthesis of plasma proteins such as albumin and clotting factors. Processing of drugs and hormones. So any medicine that you eat will be breaking down by the liver in terms of drug metabolism. So they're modified, activated or inactivated before entering the systemic circulation. Alcohol is also metabolized in the liver. Accumulation of the products can lead to cell injury or death, which leads to liver failure. Inactivate hormones such as insulin, glucagon to opposite effects. Excretion of bilirubin. The yellow pigment is the result of hemoglobin, and the liver modifies the pigment and move it through the bile excretion. Liver modifies this pigment and removes it through bile excretion. Accumulation of bilirubin causes jaundice. Synthesis of bile salts. Bile is a yellow and brownish fluid secreted by hepatocytes. The pH of bile will be 7.6 to 8.6, meaning that it is a little bit alkaline. Consists of water, bile salts, cholesterol, bile pigments, and ions. The main bile pigment is bilirubin. It is derived from the heme of the RBC and is broken down in the small intestines. Bile salts, made out of sodium salts and potassium salts, play a role in emulsification. Storage. The liver stores substances such as glycogen, fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K, and vitamin B12. The blood vessels of accessory digestive organs also are dumped into the liver so that the liver can process. So you have the liver, and then you have the hepatic artery, and the vein is called the hepatic portal. So the blood comes from the hepatic artery into the liver, and then after it is filtered out, it will return through the hepatic portal. The kidney. So the kidney is needed for the homeostasis of extracellular fluid. So all animals constantly acquire and lose water and solutes, and we also produce metabolic wastes. Excreted organs keep the volume and the composition of the internal environment, which is called extracellular fluid or ECF, stable. Vertebrates have a urinary system that filters water, metabolic wastes, and toxins out of the blood, and reclaims water and certain solutes. All vertebrates have paired kidneys, excreted organs that filter blood and adjust the level of solutes. In mammals, urea is excreted. So the thing about urea is that it needs 20 or 30 times more water to excrete than uric acid. So mean that every time we want to urinate, we have to get the water out too. Okay? Some mammals are adapted to habitats where fresh water is scarce. So the kangaroo rat has highly efficient kidneys and other adaptations that conserve water. So meaning that they do not urinate at all. They don't pee at all. Marine mammals have large kidneys that make and excrete urine that is saltier than seawater. Kidneys filter blood and urine. So the kidney itself has a fibrous outer layer called the renal capsule and two inner zones called renal cortex and renal medulla. The body reclaims most of the filtrate. Urine flows through ureters into the bladder that stores it. Urine flows out of the body through the urethra. So this is the kidney. So the kidney itself has its own blood vessels. The renal artery, it goes inside, and the renal vein is collecting whatever that is being filtered. So you have the outer membrane, which is fibrous, and then within it you have the medulla, the pyramid looking thing, and then you have the cortex, which is the inner part of the kidney, and then within the cortex and the medulla you have something called nephrons, which is very small tubules for filtration. So all of these excreta will be removed and dumped into the pelvis, which will go to the ureter, where it will be turned into urine. Nephron, it is a microscopic tube with a wall which is 1 cell thick. It begins in the cortex, where it falls into a cup-shaped Bowman capsule. So it enters the medulla as a proximal tubule, turns at the lobe of Henle, re-enters the cortex as a distal tubule, which drains into the collecting duct. So please remember that the medulla is the pyramid-shaped thing. The cortex will be the inner or the flesh of the kidney, in that this nephron is going from the cortex back to the medulla and then out into the pelvis. But before that, it will re-enter the cortex first. So these are the major parts of the nephron. You have the Bowman capsule, which looks like a C, and then the ball of artery called glomerulus, and then from there the renal artery will kind of slither around the nephron to reabsorb whatever that you can reabsorb, whatever is salvageable. So you have the proximal tubule, and then you have the distal tubule. Proxima means close, distal means far. And then you have the loop of Henle. There's a thing that it looks like a U, and then at the end you have the collecting duct. So it goes from Bowman capsule through the proximal, through the Henle loop, and then to the distal tubule, and then the collecting duct. Blood vessels around the nephrons. So around the nephrons, you have this thing that's called arterioles and also veins. So arterioles will be from the artery. You have the afferent coming from the body, and the efferent which exits the glomerulus. So the glomerulus itself, it is like a ball of arteries. So at this point, the pressure of the heart would push a lot of the liquid from the blood into the Bowman capsule. So you can actually filter out all of these impurities within this Bowman capsule. So efferent arterioles branch into peritubular cavities around the nephron, which converge the venules and veins leaving the kidney. Urine. Urine is from the Latin word urina, It is a liquid byproduct of the body secreted by the kidneys through urination, also called micturition, and excreted to the urethra. Average urine production in adult humans is around 1.4 liter urine per person per day. Normal range would be 0.6 to 2.6, maybe 6 to 8 urinations per day. Polyuria or excessive production is when you have more than 2.5 liters per day. Oliguria means that you have very little urine, less than 400 milliliter, and anuria is one of minus or less than 100 milliliter per day. How urine forms? Water and solutes filtered from the blood and not returned to it, plus unwatered solute secreted from the blood into the nephrons tubular regions. So within urine, 95% of the urine is water, but the 5%, you can see, it is made out of 2% urea, and others are minerals, and 0.05 ammonia. So urine forms by 3 physiological processes: glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption, and tubular secretion. And urine is not toxic, but it contains compounds eliminated by the body. It is undesirable by the body itself, thus it is irritating to skin and eyes. After suitable processing, it is possible to extract potable water from urine. Glomerular ultrafiltration. So this happens at the glomerulus in the capsule of Bowman. Force of the beating heart drives protein-free plasma out of the glomerular capillaries and into the nephron's tubular portion as a filtrate. So it is similar to when you are filtering the tea. Okay, you pour the tea through the strainer, and then the tea dust will be collecting in the strainer, leaving the liquid tea to pass through. Okay, tubular reabsorption. It is the reabsorption of useful minerals and ions back into the body. So it occurs along all of the nephron's tubular parts. So nearly all of the water and solute that leave the blood as filtrate will leave the tubule and return to blood in the peritubular capillaries, meaning that they are all reabsorbed. What is being reabsorbed? You can see salt, potassium, water, H2O minus, glucose. Okay, all of these are needed by the body, so the body will reabsorb it. Tubular secretion, it starts at the proximal tubule and continues all along the nephron's tubular parts. So secretion is something like reverse of reabsorption. It is something that you do not want from the body, so you would try to get it out. You secrete it. Okay, you try to throw it out into the urine, into the distal tubule. It starts at the proximal tubule, continues all along the nephron's tubular parts. The urine forms from water and solutes that remain in tubule. So urine is made out of water and solutes, and also the solute secreted into tubules along its length. So as the urine passes through the tubules, it becomes much more concentrated. So it starts with 300 milliosmol. At this point, not really concentrated, kind of dilute. But after being absorbed out of the ions, glucose, water, and also minerals, and being dumped with a lot of things that we don't want, which is urea, lactates, and other waste, what happens that it will be a liquid which is quite concentrated, and at the end you have 1200 milliosmol, very concentrated. So as you can see here, the component of urea starts with 0.03 per milligram per 100 cm cubed, and at the end of the tubule in the urine it becomes 2. Glucose from 0.1 to 0, meaning that glucose is totally reabsorbed. Amino acids from 0.05 to 0, meaning that it is also reabsorbed. Salts, some of them are reabsorbed, but most of them are released. So as you can see, from 0.72 to 1.50. So salts are released through the urine. Proteins will never get through the actual kidney, because proteins, they cannot fit through the glomerulus. Regulation of water intake and urine formation. So it is controlled by a thirst center. When you do not drink enough water, you make less saliva. So a dry mouth signals a region of the hypothalamus, which is your thirst center, which will notify your cerebral cortex that you need to search for water. Hormonal controls act to conserve water already in the body. So this thing that humans have but other animals do not have is the ability to smell the smell rain. Okay, usually when rain hits the ground, a lot of bacteria that is in the ground, called geosmo something. Okay, I forgot the name. They will die, and when they die, they will create this smell that humans perceive as the smell of rain. So this smell cannot be smelled by other animals or other beings except humans. So if you wanna look at the POV of evolution, this actually caused human to survive better than other animals, because we can actually smell water that is in the ground. Okay, means that we are able to look for water or look for place to live by smelling the ground and by searching the water through smell. Other animals cannot smell water through this way. Effects of antidiuretic hormone, ADH. ADH, if you look at the name, anti means no, diuretic means the act of urination. So antidiuretic hormone means that when this hormone is released, you will not create a lot of urine. So ADH is released by the pituitary when the sodium levels rise. So it increases the water absorption by stimulating the insertion of aquaporins. So aquaporins are more more chambers or doors for water to get out. Okay, so it's like trying to poke holes into your straw. More holes mean that more water can go through. Okay, so insertion of aquaporins into plasma membranes of distal tubules and collecting ducts mean that at this point your distal tubules will absorb water even more. More water absorbed, what will happen? The urine will be concentrated and less. So ADH will cause your urine to become much more concentrated but less volume. Effect of aldosterone. Aldosterone is released by the adrenal cortex. So this will increase the salt reabsorption in the collection ducts, and water follows by osmosis. So because our body needs some salt, so salt cannot be absorbed just like that. It must be we must be dissolved in water. So when your body needs salt, the water and salt are both absorbed, so it will cause your urine to become concentrated. So the decrease in volume of extracellular fluid will stimulate arterioles in nephron to release renin. Renin will convert angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1, converted to angiotensin 2, which acts on the adrenal cortex to secrete aldosterone. So meaning that if you're actually losing a lot of water, mean that you actually need to keep the water inside the body. So aldosterone actually preserves the water by reabsorbing and also reducing the volume of pee. Okay, reducing the volume of urine. Hormonal disorders and fluid balance. Diabetes insipidus will cause the pituitary gland to secrete too little LDH. This receptor does not respond, and aquaporins are impaired. So they will be always feeling like they have to pee. Okay, this actually is one of the quite common symptoms of diabetes. ADH oversecretion by some cancers, infection, and antidepressants. Aldosterone oversecretion by adrenal gland tumors. Next, for the homeostasis of acid and base. So normal pH of extracellular fluid will be 7.35 to 7.45. Kidneys, offering systems, and respiratory systems work together to maintain the acid-base balance, which is H+ concentration, within a tight range. Kidneys are the only organs that can selectively get rid of the body of the H+ ions. Acid-base balance. We have this buffer system called the bicarbonate carbonic acid. So it minimizes pH changes by binding excess H+. So if you have too much H+, it will be grabbed by the HCO3- to become H2CO3, and then it will be turned into CO2 and water. Kidneys adjust blood pH by bicarbonate resorption and H+ secretion. Respiration adjusts blood pH by removing CO2. When kidneys fail. Most kidney problem occurs as complication of diabetes mellitus or high blood pressure. Infections, toxins, drugs, and high-protein diets can also damage kidneys. Kidney failure can be treated with dialysis, but only a kidney transplant can fully restore function. Horseshoe kidney. Horseshoe kidney is when you have a kidney which are both combined together or fused. So this is also called renal fusion or super kidney. It is a disorder that happens during the conception, which is called congenital disorder. It happens in the womb. About 1 in 400 people have this horseshoe kidney, and it is more common in men. In this disorder, the patient's kidney fuse together to form a horseshoe shape during development in the womb. The fused part is the isthmus of the horseshoe kidney. So Mel Gibson is affected with this condition. Other positions, we have the pelvic kidney, which is the kidney lower than usual. It is near your pelvis. Other than that, you have a high kidney, which is subdiaphragmatic, or thoracic kidney. So thoracic means it is in your thorax or upper half of your body. You might also have crossed fused ectopic kidney. In this case, both of your kidneys are on the same side and they are fused together as one. Kidney dialysis. It temporarily restores proper solute balance in a person with kidney failure. Hemodialysis pumps blood through a machine that cleans blood and adjusts your solutes. In peritoneal dialysis, a dialysis solution is pumped into the peritoneal cavity at night and removed into the morning. So as you can see in this boy, the blood goes all the way from the wrist artery, wrist vein, all the way into this machine, and it is reinserted back into the body, meaning that the blood that is to be inserted or reinserted is the clean blood. So all of these big machines are just doing a job that one organ can do by itself. A single kidney is adequate to maintain health. So transplants of kidneys from living donors, usually a relative, are more successful than kidneys donated after death. So more than 40,000 people remain on waiting lists because of shortage of donated kidneys. Water conservation in plants. Plant regulation. Transpiration causes water loss, and it can be replaced with water drawn from the leaf through the xylem. Walls of mesophyll cells are kept moist so that gases can enter or leave the cells easily, but water also evaporates from the surface, lost to the atmosphere. If stomata is open all the time, water loss due to transpiration would be so great that a few plants would be able to take in enough water to survive. Plants maintain homeostasis by keeping their stomata open just enough to allow photosynthesis to take place, but not so much that they lose an excessive amount of water. Osmotic pressure keeps a plant's leaves and stems rigid. High temperature rates can lead to wilting. Wilting results from loss of water and therefore pressure in the plant cells. Regulation of extracellular fluid. Not precisely regulated in plants. Plants are fairly tolerant of changes in the solute concentration of the extracellular fluid, providing solute concentration is hypotonic to solute concentration inside of the cells. But if the solute concentration of extracellular fluid is hypertonic to the solute concentration in cytoplasm, water will diffuse out of the cytoplasm, resulting in plasmolysis, which is shrinkage of cytoplasm and potentially cell death. So, if the cytoplasm is hypotonic, okay, compared to the outer part, then water will actually move out. But if the cytoplasm is always hypertonic, usually this is normal condition, water will rush in and fill up the cell, giving the cell turgidity. Gaseous exchange. In vascular plants, the rate of movement of water, CO2 and oxygen between atmosphere and internal space is regulated by the degree of opening of stomata. So stomata is on the underside of the leaves, so they are controlled by the gut cells. The gut cells have three structural features which explain their function. They are joined at the ends in pairs. Their cell walls are thicker on the side nearer to stomata pore. Bands of inelastic cellulose fibers run around each cell. Stomatal movement is a result of changes in the turgor of gut cells. If water flows into gut cells by osmosis, their turgor increases and they expand. The relatively inelastic inner wall makes them bend and draw away from each other. This opens the pore. What causes them to open? High H2O, light and low CO2. Mean that they need water, they need CO2, they'll open. But at the cost of greater water loss, but more CO2. But to close, they will close when you have low water, darkness, high CO2, and a lot of citric acid. Response: stomata will close. So the cost will be less CO2, but more water is preserved. Stomatal opening and closing is based on potassium ions. When potassium ions move into vacuoles, water will move with the vacuoles into the vacuoles, just following potassium ions. Stomatal opening. Potassium ions move into the vacuoles, and with that movement, water also moves in, following potassium ions. So the gut cells will expand, stomata will open. Stomata closing, potassium ions will move out, so the water will also follow, moving out. The gut cells will shrink in size, and stomata will close. The end.